Hi, members of the Pandemic Book Club. Um, it's really great to be talking to you this week about a book that I've been reading. My name is Daniel Reeve. I teach medieval literature here in the English department at UCSB, and it's been really fun over the last few months to dip into the videos, dip into the chat, hear what everyone's been reading and what you all think about the books that people have been talking about. And thanks so much to Dr. Brian Donnelly for creating this space, for having the idea, for seeing it through. I think it's a really fantastic thing. So thank you so much, Brian. So the book that I've chosen is not a classic or even a work that I've known personally for a long time. I just, in fact, read it this week, but I thought it was excellent and I really wanted to recommend it to you all. And that book is called Priestdaddy. It's a memoir written by the poet and essayist Patricia Lockwood, and it was published in 2017. I think Patricia Lockwood is just a wonderful writer and stylist, a kind of amazing creator of sentences. I'd previously read some of her work as a poet and an essayist, and I follow and very much enjoy following her Twitter because her tweets somehow manage to be simultaneously outrageous and beautiful and gross. It's a really impressive achievement. And a lot of the writing that has really kept me going during this period of pandemic isolation is writing that is somehow like stylistically weird, which sees the world through a kind of different lens from the one that certainly I'm used to. And there's a scene in this book where Lockwood describes to her mother her own way of seeing the world. And I think this is a kind of key to this book's whole aesthetic. She says, "You start by thinking sideways," I tell her. "First you sit in a sunlit room and you look past the wall but really look through it, and you read your book but really read past it." And it's writing like that which I've really been found myself enjoying in these last months. I think there's something about prose nonfiction, which is what this book is, written by someone who is first and foremost a poet, which makes for a really fun stylistic experience. So that's a big part of this book's virtue. But I really don't want to give the impression that it's somehow very serious writing. There's a constant mixing of registers, which means that this book, even when it's talking about distressing or emotionally complex topics, which it really often does, manages to be very, very, very funny. And I'd read some out to you, but I wouldn't really do it justice because I think the funniest moments involve Lockwood's amazing ventriloquism of the speech patterns of her weird family who are from the Midwest, and it just wouldn't work in my accent. So I'm not going to subject you to that. You should read it yourself and imagine those voices in your own heads. So as I said, the book is a memoir, and its central presence is Lockwood's father, Priestdaddy, who is that strangest of things, a married Catholic priest. And he managed to wangle this by converting from Lutheranism, so he didn't need to commit to celibacy, and so has a family. And the book is set in a period in Lockwood's adult life when she and her husband, who has become ill and can't work because of his illness, have to move back in with her parents. So Lockwood is speaking from this very weird family circumstance of being part of a family which is itself part of an institution which in turn isn't really made up of families because nearly all of the priests don't have them. And of this experience of returning as an adult to her childhood family environment, which is also in this kind of bizarre way a Catholic rectory. So a lot of the book is about this relationship with Catholicism that Lockwood has, and a lot of it sees her thinking through her own experience of, and even her complicity with, the institution of the Catholic Church. So a thread that runs through this memoir concerns one small part of the Catholic child sex abuse scandal, one which involves the silence of a Midwestern bishop who was Lockwood's father's boss. And she describes really movingly and honestly her dim knowledge from fairly early in her life of these sort of open institutional secrets regarding known abusers, and of a few occasions when she came into close contact with them herself. So it's a book which is narrated by a person who has a very complicated relationship with Catholicism, and who has the kind of expressive resources at her disposal to describe that relationship in all of its complex, compromised, messy breadth, as both a misogynistic and abusive institution, but one which was also deeply formative for her as a person and a writer, and one which just materially gave her shelter at a time in her life when she needed it. One of the book's great successes, I think, lies in its brilliantly drawn central character, the titular Priestdaddy, Lockwood's father, who is a man who is either robed in his priestly vestments or sitting in his underpants, surrounded by either parts of guns or heaps of grilled meat, and who spends most of his time locked in an upstairs office shredding on electric guitars, which he bought, distressingly enough, with Lockwood's college fund, and she never attended university because of his, at least as the book would have it, because of his guitar habit. So he's more often actually absent than present in this book. He's up there in his office, heard rather than seen, emitting kind of unintelligible shouts and noises from behind the door of his closed office, and emerging occasionally to grill meats and comfort distressed parishioners. So in this presentation, he kind of comes across as something like the Old Testament God. He's this very loud and present absence, and as Lockwood notes in the opening pages of the book, as this disturbingly literal embodiment of Catholic patriarchy. So he's just like a brilliant, larger-than-life character. And Lockwood's mother, her siblings, and her husband are all lovingly and hilariously written as well. They're all brilliant characters, both vastly different from and kind of recognizably related to the writer's own character. There's this real sense of family resemblance and non-resemblance that comes across really wonderfully in this book, I think. So that's my pandemic recommendation. I found it a kind of escapist pleasure, not just because of the wonderful poetic weirdness of its sentences, of its images, of its expressive resources, but also because it kind of gave me the opportunity to go and live in the Midwest for a while with a weird bunch of people from a religious tradition which I'm not familiar with, and people who are described by its author, who are depicted by its author with this kind of unmistakable love and affection, despite the fact that they're a bunch of weirdos. So yeah, that's why I enjoyed it, and I recommend it to you very highly. If you're wondering whether you're going to be into Lockwood's work, and if you're considering whether or not to get hold of a copy of this book, then I'd recommend having a look at her London Review of Books essay, Malfunctioning Sex Robot, which is about the work of John Updike. And it begins with this brilliant line, I was hired as an assassin. You don't bring in a 37-year-old woman to review John Updike in the year of our Lord 2019 unless you're hoping to see blood on the ceiling. And then she communicates hilariously her sort of distress at having to read all of the 70-odd novels of John Updike for this review. So yeah, I would recommend that or any of her other essays really, if you want to get a sense of her style and whether you might be into this book. And if you're on Twitter, I would really very strongly recommend you giving her account a follow to get in your feed those hilarious compressed little bits of weird poetry. Okay, that's my pandemic recommendation, and I hope that you enjoy it if you end up reading it.